Hello everyone. So in today's video, I want to show you the work done so far on the real grade Tallgeese scale model kit. Now what you see arrayed out here are the various sub-assemblies that I managed to put together. I've done some paintwork as well as panel lining and decals, which I will explain later as we move along. So here now is the head of the Tallgeese. That red plume you see on top of his head has been painted in red. So has the side vents, the orange-yellow vents on the side. Meanwhile, in that shiny mono eye that you see on the head is actually a foil sticker. It's a shiny turquoise-looking foil sticker. So the parts I painted are the metal bits on the head, the red plume, as well as the orange-yellow vents on the sides of the head. This then is the head of the real grade Tallgeese kit. I also did some panel lining on the head. Now we move on to the torso or the main body of the Tallgeese. Here, similar to the head, I painted the yellow bits and the metal bits. I've top coated that grey looking arm extensions, as well as placed some water decals on the main body. For example, those that I'm showing right now, those are the red and black markings. Those are water decals, both on the front and the back of the Tallgeese's torso. That then is the main body of the real grade Tallgeese. Now let's move on to its waist. Here we see the front part of the waist. The metal bits and the yellow bits have been painted. The grey parts you see underneath are mostly top coated, whereas the white parts, the white armor of the real grade Tallgeese have been literally untouched. So all the white bits, armor bits you see here are actually been left as is and only panel line. Now this here is the back skirts of the Tallgeese. There's a lot of details on the insides. So let me just open it up so that you can have a closer look. As you can see, the insides have been painted in a metallic color. The whites are as is, but the metal bits have been painted. I've also put on some decals as with the other parts that I've shown so far. Most of them are in red and black markings, as you see here. These are not original Bandai water decals. They are in fact third-party decals, which I'll show later. These are the metal bits. So then that's the back skirt of the Tallgeese. So now let's move on to the rocket veneers or rocket thrusters, the backpack rocket veneers or backpack rocket thrusters. This is a very intricate part. Consists of a lot of moving parts. On the outsides, I have placed some decals as I'm showing here now. As with the others, they are mainly black and red decals. The yellow parts have been painted as well as the metallic parts. And as I mentioned before, all the white parts are just left as is, apart from some panel lining. So now let me open up the rocket veneer so you can see what's inside. As you can see, the mechanism is very intricate, very complicated. But once you open it up, there's a lot of detail inside, which is the main reason why I painted all the insides in a metallic color as well as given them a black wash. That then is the backpack rocket thrusters or veneers for the real grade Tallgeese. Now let's move on to the side skirts for the waist. No surprises here. Metallic parts painted in sort of a iron paint, iron metallic paint. The whites left alone except for some panel lining, while the insides have been painted metallic as I mentioned earlier. Same kind of water decals as with the others here. It's pretty standard until we get to the shield, which I'll be showing you later. So that then is the side skirts, which will be attached to the waist of the real great Tallgeese later. Now these shiny bits I'm pointing at now are just the metal parts which I've painted. After everything have been sub-assembled, you can see the metal part showing through the white armor. Next then, we'll look at the arms of the Tallgeese. The yellow parts have been painted. Most of the time, if I see any yellow plastic parts on any kit, I'll paint them. Otherwise, they'll look very plasticky. There's a lot of water decals on them, as I'm showing here. All similarly designed in a red and black color scheme. The dark bluish grey parts on his hands as well as the shoulders all have been just top coated. I didn't paint those dark bluish grey parts. Now the articulation of the arms is fantastic. It bends all the way in, and when it does so, the innards of the elbow can be seen. They give a few options for the hands as well. That's the arms and hands of the real great Tallgeese. So now let's move on to the legs. Articulation is equally fantastic, as you can see by the bend here. And when you bend the legs, the inside mechanisms of the knee can show through. Articulation on the foot is reasonably okay. For the legs of the Tallgeese, work has been done in terms of decal, as I'm pointing out here. The white armor has been panel lined. The decals on the back as well. The metallic parts painted and the yellow parts painted as well. So that's the leg. We will move on now to the shield. Now the shield has a slightly different decal in terms of color scheme. It has that yellow eagle that you see spread out on the front. The back of the shield has been painted, the metallic peaks have been painted, and parts of it protrudes out on the front. Now that's the decal I was talking about. The orange-yellow or yellow bits that you see surrounding the shield have been painted. The insides of the shield contains the handle for the beam saber, as I'm pointing out now. Those have just been panel lined. That hole there allows an attachment which will eventually fix onto the shoulder, which will be shown in the assembly process in the next part. Now that's a handle on the shield. So from the shield, let's move on now to the Dober gun. Now all I did was to paint the gun barrel in a metallic color, whereas the bluish grey parts you see here have been just top coated and given some water decals. The metallic parts, of course, have been painted, especially the ammo clip. There's also some foil stickers near the ammo clip. But apart from that, that's all I did. Now this hole and pack joint system will also eventually attach to the shoulder, which I'll show later on in the assembly process. So that then is the stuff that I've done for the real grade Tallgeese. There are some other parts that on the sprues which I have not touched on yet, especially some options, other hand options, which will be used for holding weapons. This I will, in this case, to hold the shield. This I'll show later on during the section on the weapons. All I plan to do for these hand options are to top coat them at most. As I mentioned, there are also hand options to hold onto the double gun. So now, the beam saber handles are now currently just fixed onto the back of the shield, but if I want to, I can cut off the beam sabers that are on show here, the pink and the clear white ones, and place them onto the handles. This then is a 1/144 scale figurine of Zack Marcus, the antagonist in the Gundam Wing universe. I won't be painting this figurine for now, but most likely I'll do it eventually down the road. Other parts left to show are this connector piece, which will allow the real grade Tallgeese to connect to an action base. So that then is what I have done with the real grade Tallgeese, which is essentially to paint all the metal parts, the red, orange, yellow parts as well, to panel line the white armor, and to put some white decals on it. As promised earlier, I'm showing you now the third-party decals that I use, which are from Artisans Club. From my experience working with them in this kit, they are not bad in quality, and as you can see here, they look very good. As for the Bandai stickers, I've used their foil stickers for the kit here. This is what I've done with the RG Tallgeese. On the next part, we'll move on to the full assembly of the RG Tallgeese. So we're going to put together the real grade Tallgeese from Bandai and have a quick review on the kit, at least my opinion of the kit. So let's start the final assembly of the real grade Tallgeese by attaching its head onto its torso or body. It is a simple ball joint which attaches like so. There is some movement side to side, as you can see here. Also some tilting of the head, slight tilting of the head to the left or right. So that's the real grade Tallgeese's head attached to the body. Before we go on any further, let's put together the waist section. First by attaching the back skirts onto the inner frame of the waist, followed by its side skirts. All these are being attached via simple ball joints. So I guess it gives some range of movement to the skirts as we are trying to pose or move the legs of the Tallgeese. So that's the back skirts and the left side skirts placed, or attached rather. Now let's proceed with the right-sided side skirt, which I'm doing now. As you can see from the insides of the waist section, there's tremendous amount of detail, and it helps to paint those details in a metallic so that they are prominent and pop up, so to speak. Here I'm attaching the torso of the Tallgeese onto the waist. Simple hole and pack joint, which I believe allows for a rotational movement at the waist, which should be limited only by when the waist armor comes or hits onto the side skirts. There is some movement, not much. Most of the movement is being restricted by the armor on the waist against the side skirts. I'm just making sure that the torso is attached securely onto the waist. Once that's done, I guess we should move on to the legs. So let's begin with the Tallgeese's left leg. Attaches via a simple hole and pack joint. Now the right leg goes on. You might not see it yet, but the Tallgeese is very bottom heavy, meaning that the top part of the Tallgeese is smaller in size when you compare to the bottom half, as in the waist and legs. Here I'm just making sure that the legs are firmly attached onto the waist. So the legs are now reasonably secure onto the waist. So we can now move on to the next part of the final assembly process for this Bandai 1/144 scale real grade Tallgeese from the RG Gundam Wing universe. This mobile suit, the Tallgeese, is actually piloted by OZ-00MS, the protagonist in the Gundam Wing RG universe. He is the typical so-called villain whenever there's a particular Gundam Wing series on show. So now let's move on to the next part of the final assembly process, which is to attach the arms of the Tallgeese onto the torso, as I'm doing now. There's movement not only on the arms but on the shoulder armor as well, which allows for a greater degree of freedom of movement as well as a better articulation of the arms. The attachment is via a simple hole and pack system, which allows for a rotational movement around the torso. That then are the arms attached onto the main body of the Tallgeese. With the arms attached, we now move on to the next section of the assembly, which will be the backpack rocket veneers. They will attach via this extension or armature using the same kind of joint as in the hands and the legs, which is just a simple pack into a hole. You have to be very careful here, because if you were to put too much force and insert it at the wrong angle, I believe you will likely snap that joint section there. So do please be careful when putting the rocket veneers or trusses onto the backpack or the so-called armature extensions that you see here. That's the rocket veneers. The right one I'm attaching now. It's a bit more difficult doing it while trying to film it on camera, as I have to look at it from a very weird angle and I can't really see what's happening apart from what's being displayed on the screen. So that then is the rocket veneers attached onto the back extensions. The fitting is reasonably tight, so you don't really have to worry of it coming out later on. Now most of the Tallgeese has been done, apart from the extensions on the shoulder which will connect the Tallgeese to its shield and weapons. This we will do in the next section of this video. So let's move on. Now before that, I'll just show you the different hand options that are available for the Tallgeese. Here then is the fist like pose, but that fist can also hold on to the handle of the double gun. So now we are ready to move on to the weapon and shield section of the real grade Tallgeese. We'll assemble the weapons onto the Tallgeese and see how they operate in relation to the figure itself. So let's do that now. Now the double gun and the shield of the real grade Tallgeese attaches to the mobile suit via some extensions to the shoulder. Before the extensions can be attached to the shoulder, I'll first have to open up this small panel at the bottom of the shoulder armor. This reveals a hole which allows the extension to attach to. I'll do it first for both sides of the shoulder armor. Now if you have painted the parts, you have to be careful not to scrape the paint off the parts as you open the panels. But before I attach the extension onto the shoulder, I'll first place it onto the shield, attach it onto the shield via a ball joint. Again, here you have to be very careful. Additional force might break off the joints and cause irreversible damage. Now that's done, I'll place the extension onto the shoulder armor. When this is done, the shield is now attached to the Tallgeese without the mobile suit even having to hold on to it. The extension itself have just been top coated. I didn't paint it. I believe I used the Mr. Hobby Super Smooth Clear matte clear coat to top coat that part. That part consists of some light grey and bluish grey parts. Now we move on to the other extension, which allows the double gun to attach to the other shoulder of the Tallgeese. The double gun looks fantastic with its combination of bluish grey armor paneling and that long chrome colored gun barrel. I had painted it in a chrome metallic paint to give it that extra shine. As you can see, I think I have pushed the extension too hard onto the gun, and you can see some plastic warpings or stress marks on the connection. There, that white plastic warping issues at the connection point. Be careful not to do what I did. Now let's carefully place the extension onto the right shoulder, bearing in mind that I've already weakened the connection to the double gun. So I have to be very careful as not to put extra stress on the connection to the double gun, lest the gun breaks off the extension. Breaks off from the extension rather. That is the double gun and the shield attached to the real grade Tallgeese. They allow the Tallgeese to be essentially hands-free with the weapons and shield attached to it. And when it needs it, it can just swing the double gun around, hold it in the hands, and do the same on the left hand with the shield. That concludes the assembly of the double gun and the shield of the Tallgeese onto the mobile suit itself. When I move on next, I'll be showing you a 360 rotating view of the Tallgeese in various poses, showing it wielding the double gun as well as the shield in a more dynamic pose. So that's the assembly of the double gun and the shield complete, at least the attachment to the mobile suit itself. And let's move on now to the next part of this video, which as mentioned just now is the 360-degree view of the RG or real grade Tallgeese in various poses wielding the double gun and shield, as well as giving you a quick review of what I think of this kit. So we'll kick off the 360-degree view for this real grade Tallgeese from the OZ-00MS Gundam Wing universe with a simple pose that shows you how stable the kit is without having to manipulate its pose that much. Despite the double gun extending so far out into the front, it is reasonably balanced by the rocket verniers or thrusters at the back. Thus, even in a pose in which it is just standing straight up, as you can see here, it can stand on its own 2 feet and not fall over either to the front or back. Stability of the real grade Tallgeese is very good even without an action base, as the simple standing pose shows you here. Next, I am posing the RG or real grade Tallgeese in a squatting pose. I still am not using an action base, and as you can see here, the stability is fairly okay. It's not toppling over to either side. And as I mentioned, for the standing pose, even at the squatting pose, the double gun and the rocket thrusters balance out, give it a greater stability. Now in this particular pose, I am finally putting the real grade Tallgeese onto an action base, specifically the Bandai Action Base 4, the black colored one. I have spread out the rocket verniers or thrusters at its backpack in a more open position. The side skirts flat out a bit, and it is posed in such a way that it seems to be moving forward. For such dynamic poses in which the feet are not necessarily horizontal to the ground, it is best to use an action base. And in my experience, for most real grade, not all, but for most real grade kits, the action base 4 is a perfect fit, especially for the real grade Tallgeese here. It is an excellent fit. This then is the RG or real grade Tallgeese in a more dynamic pose, placed up upon the Bandai action base 4. Before I end this final part of the video series for the Tallgeese, let me just give you some thoughts I have on this real grade kit. In short, I think this Bandai real grade Tallgeese kit from the Gundam Wing Endless Waltz universe is a fantastic kit. I think it looks excellent. I might be a bit biased here because the Tallgeese is actually one of my favorite mobile suits from the Gundam universe. But that being said, your eyes can't lie to you. As you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic, even though I have not painted the armor apart from panel lining it and putting some decals, third-party decals onto it. So what you see here, the white armor has not been painted, but the yellow pieces, the red parts, as well as the metallic parts all have been painted using Mr. Color lacquer paint. Meanwhile, the dark grey, dark bluish grey, as well as the light grey pieces have been top coated with Mr. Hobby Super Smooth Clear. But that's all I did. And even then, it looks absolutely fantastic. Not only that, I had great fun building this kit. So I highly recommend this real great kit to anyone who wants to pick it up. So anyway, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, have a great day, dear viewers.